Welcome back to my channel, guys. So today we're going to talk about something that's very, very interesting. I had the opportunity of sitting on one of Butter the Insider's lives, and we'll get more into that. But I wanted to pose this topic, and the topic is, could this potentially save Dodge? And I was thinking about it for a while, doing a lot of research, and I wanted your thoughts to create a dialogue, because you guys seem to like, in the morning time when I'm driving to work, my coffee talks, or just kind of sitting and chatting with you guys. But it's regarding the mid-size versus the compact cars. Could Dodge bring mid-size or a compact car and save themselves? Let's talk about it. So if you go back in history, right, Dodge has tried compact cars, Dodge has tried mid-size cars. I mean, you remember the Dodge Neon? I mean, back in the day, and I know I'm dating myself, but you had a Geo Metro, a Neon. Boy, you would sit there and try to floor that crap, and nowadays you look at it, that shit didn't go nowhere, but you thought you were going somewhere, right? So the Neon 2006-ish, and then it came down to the Caliber 2007. And then, everybody wanted the Dodge Dart, right? And interestingly, when I went back, so some of the stuff I didn't know, but the Dodge Dart didn't just come back or originate in 2013 to 2016. The Dodge Dart was way back, and it was first introduced as a full-size car, 1960 to 1961. And then what happened, it transitioned into a mid-size car in I think 1962, and then finally ended up to be a compact car, 1963, I think to 76-ish. And then when I was reading, I think it kind of, discontinued, and the Dodge Aspen, I want to say Dodge Aspen F-body came into play. Don't quote me on that. And then when you're looking on the mid-sizes, so that's the topic that we're going to get into. But you remember, you had the Stratus from 94 to 2006. Then you had the Avenger. A lot of people remember the Avenger, right? From 2007, 2014. And then I think Chrysler, came a Chrysler 200, where Dodge was trying to merge with and consolidate their mid-size vehicle with Chrysler in 2015. And when I was looking at the mid-size, because I'm trying to figure out, well, how is Dodge going to save themselves with all this crap they created with the EVs and this upcoming inline six Hurricane? We'll talk about that too. I wanted to kind of see, well, how many units did the midsize actually sell? What was their popular car? And it came down to the Stratus and the Avenger. So when you're looking at the Stratus, that was the #1 midsize vehicle that Dodge sold, with over, I think, 1,300,000 some units sold, compared to the Stratus, which did pretty good, but that was over like 294,000 units. Those were the top midsize cars for Dodge then. And then eventually Dodge said, you know what? We're not going to keep our money in compact cars. We're not going to do midsize. We're just going to focus on, the Challenger, the Charger. And I know that they tried to come out they tried to rebadge and come out with the Hornet. So right now, what is the lineup? We have no compact cars. We have no midsize cars. We got this Hornet, where the Hornet, in reality, and that's one thing too, when I was talking live with Butter, the Insider, Hornet really didn't do much with the Alfa from Romeo, right? But because that was originally the Alfa Romeo, and I'm looking at my notes, Tonale, right? But when it was rebranded for the Hornet in the United States, right, was rebranded, it sold 9,000 some units. When Butter was explaining that to me, because at first I'm like, man, the Hornet is shit. It ain't doing nothing. And really, when you put in perspective, it's not doing anything, but it did a lot better, because for some reason in the United States, Alfa Romeo is just not really doing good, right? So when you're looking at that from that perspective, from Alfa Romeo Tonale to a Dodge Hornet, it did sell higher. The U.S. market, it did sell higher, for about 4-to-1 ratio. I think Butter was telling me when I was talking. So he said, you know what, that was a good idea to consider. Now, when you kind of go back, and like I said, I'm looking at my notes. I really don't think that Alfa Romeo has been doing good in the U.S. market anyway. But hey, Dodge, I believe, is going to have to do something. Because like I said in my last video, the EVs right now are not functioning. You got 2024 on the lot. You got 2025 coming now onto the lot. They are having a lot of issues where they're going to have to be reprogrammed. Things are not working. I was reading, I'm starting to get into these articles. That's one thing I love about Butter the Insider, OC Motivator. They are into TK Garage. They get down deep and dirty into the history of Dodge, like what is happening, the market approach for Dodge. And they're actually making me do research. And that's one thing I love because I'm a nerd. I love to dig and do the research. And it was so funny. I was reading an article that, Butter was talking about, I think one of the downfalls with Dodge coming out with this EV is they try to sell it as a muscle car. And when Butter said he was directing it to that article, it can't even do a burnout. That is like one of the top kind of things that a muscle car has to be able to do. You got to do a burnout. And this car doesn't even do a burnout. And then I was reading that they were saying, you know what? They're working on it. 2026, they're going to come out with this SRT variant that's going to allow you to do a burnout. I'm like, man, get that heck out of here, man. You already lost your audience because you're selling something that should not try to be compared to a muscle car. If you wanted people to get into the habit or start liking the EV, you should have sold it as an EV, but you should have never tried to say that an EV is a muscle car. That is where I think you lost the audience, Dodge. And then, like I said, this Hurricane, this inline, a twin turbo that's coming out. Another thing, you start digging and doing your history, listening to these guys, fantastic. They are just on it. They are having issues with the catalytic converters. The thermostats is overheating, so the crap is not working. So why would you even sit here and consider buying a $45,000 to $60,000 car and you already know that the shit is not working? So not only do you have the EVs not working, you got this inline six, this Hurricane coming out, and we already hearing it ain't working. So what is going to be the future of Dodge, right? And then that's when I started doing my stuff. I really started digging into it. And I'm like, if I was working like in administration, or if I was working with them, what could I propose? What could I come up with? And I think the midsize or even the compact car, and we'll kind of talk about the compact car because I know like Butter and Inside was talking about the midsize car because we had a nice dialogue going. But I think that is what's missing. That is what's missing. So let's talk about it. When we're talking about Ford, you remember Ford had the Ford Focus, then it turned to the Maverick. I don't think those sales are really doing good, but I'm not going to talk about all that because I really didn't look it up. But the only really competitor right now is when you're looking Nissan. Nissan has had compact cars and mid-size cars. I'm going to tell you right now, because back in the day, before I got into cars, you bet your girl had an Altima 2.5. Boy, I thought you couldn't tell me nothing. I had rims on that bad boy. Them rims, you could lick my rims back in the day. I thought I was the shit with this Nissan Altima. But that being said, the Nissan Sentra right now, perfect compact car. And you know what? During this difficult time, money is tight right now. A lot of things are going on. It's affordable. That was one of my arguments. We need to have an affordable car for people. The Sentra right now is going around $23,000 right now. If you want to upgrade to the Sentra SR, you're looking maybe about $25,000, which is reasonable, right? That's a pretty reasonable car payment. Nothing fancy, but at the same time, it gets you from point A to point B. And then if you want to consider a mid-size car, the Altima has been tried and true. It is one of the highest sales in 2004. They said that they sold over 924,000 units. That has been an increase of 2.8% compared to the sales in the prior year. Now look at that. Dodge sales are going down. Everybody else is But Nissan has an increase, exponential increase with their sales because they know the Nissan Altima has been tried and true. People like the car. Now, some people will say, you know what? Yeah, you say that's all good and dandy, but because of that stupid CVT transmission, that continuous variable transmission, it's not reliable long term. And I get that. That's another discussion probably for another day. But people who purchase these cars need something right now that they can get either to jobs. You got to, like I'm a mom, you got to transport kids. You need something that's reliable right now, can get you to A and B, and it's not breaking your bank. So that is why I said Dodge has to come up with something, right? So my first option was, I started looking at the Dodge Attitude. Now, before anybody comes for me, listen to what I'm saying. That right now is only in the Mexico market. It had came out, but right now the sales are 2/3 of Dodge sales in all of Mexico. And I'm going to show you some pictures, and I kind of, put some videos in here. That's not a bad looking car. I understand that people were saying that we got to bring the work back to America, the United States, which I agree, right? And now that politics have changed, the production lines, all of these things are changing. What better way to bring this back and get a compact car? Increase sales, increase revenue, and then we can focus back on these V8s that sells, right? Dodge right now has to recuperate from what they made a mistake. With all of the issues that Carlos did, you have to get yourself out of the hole. And what better way? Get a car that's going to be decent, that looks good, that's affordable. So this Dodge Attitude comes in 3 trims. You got the SXT, you got the Sport, and you got the GT. The SXT is around $23,000, just like the Nissan Sentra. Same price difference, right? Or price when you're looking at it. The Sport, I think anywhere from $26,000. And then you have the GT where you're going up towards $28,000. It's still cheaper than the current cars that Dodge has. Because you remember, that's the other issue. The other issue with Dodge is they're pricing these things way up. They're marking these prices up. Don't nobody want to buy that car because things are, it's too much money. Cost them, who's going to pay that shit when right now you sitting there struggling trying to figure out what you're going to buy for groceries, right? Ain't nobody going to buy those cars. So not only does Dodge have to be really, really smart about what they're going to bring back, they also have to nail it on the head with the prices. So that's what I was saying. So this Dodge Attitude, and I'm going to look at my paper here, 1.5 liter turbo, 4-cylinder engine, 168 horsepower, 184 pound-foot of torque. That's a decent car to get by A through Z, to get to your work, to do your things with your kids and all that stuff. So let me know what you feel about, should Dodge try to invest their efforts in saving a compact car? Now, this is where me and Butter kind of had a dialogue, because he was saying that he thinks that maybe Dodge can rebadge the Alfa Romeo, the Giulia. Now that's a nice car. And again, you have to look at Alfa Romeo, right? When you go back, they left the US market in 1995 because the sales here, they don't do good here. It's for some reason, we don't like Alfa Romeo. It's not that it's a bad car, just don't, for some reason, they don't sell here. They came back in 2015. In 2024, the total number of cars sold was only 12,843. That's based on what I was reading. So that's a 30% reduction since 2021, right? And they were saying out of that, and that's where Butter was saying, out of that, the best-selling car was that Giulia car, selling over 4,600 units of that. Right? So look at those numbers again and then go back and compare to the midsize, the Altima. Look what that Altima was bringing in, right? And again, they increased their sales by 2.8. This Alfa Romeo took a hit 30%, has lost 30% since 2021, right? Alfa Romeo. So when Butter was talking, it was like maybe considering rebadging that. Dodge can rebadge that and bring that car and see if it sells. And I was thinking at first, I kind of talked to him and I was like, yeah, but is Alfa Romeo going to let them do that? Will they be willing to let one of their best-selling cars, be rebadged to Dodge? And he was saying, well, why not? And that's a good point, because when you look at it, again, look at the sales and then look at how many units were sold of the Giulia in the U.S. market, 4,600. So obviously, there is some people who like this car. So what better approach for Dodge to rebadge the car? Now, this is where I start getting into it. And I might pronounce some of these words wrong. What type of engine would they put in this car, right? Again, Dodge has to nail it on the head with price. So you have to look at the engine. Can't be a shitty engine, but at the same time, can't be a massive engine where, again, the price is going to be so jacked up and nobody going to want to buy it. So when I was looking at it, I was trying to think of things that are comparable, right? So in the market, the Giulia Sprint would be considered mid-size, and that starts around $44,000. Can go anywhere up to $50-some thousand, but that's the 2.0 turbocharged 4-cylinder, 280 horsepower, 306 foot-pound of torque, okay? So then I was also looking at, too, well, what's equivalent to, what sold the most here, right? What Giulia sold the most? Because there's like 6 different trims to the Giulia if you look at it. And the Giulia that sold here in the U.S., and I'm probably going to say this wrong, was the Veloce, right? I might have said that wrong. But the Veloce, 4-door rear wheel turbocharged 2.0 liter 4-cylinder, I'm looking at my notes, 276 horsepower, 295 foot-pound of torque. Now, that one right there went for $49,000 some dollars on up, depending on what you wanted for the car. Now you see how we're moving up in these prices. Again, you have to captivate your audience. Is your audience going to start paying for a more expensive car when they can go back down to the Nissan, if they want a compact, $23,000, and then, or looking at a Nissan Altima, which has been tried and true, right? What is going to make them go from this to this rebadged car here at $49,000? This is the one that sold the most in the U.S. market, okay? And then I said, you know what, let's take it let's go a step further. This new inline twin turbos coming out with Dodge, the Hurricane's coming out. So then I said, okay, well, what if they would do that approach? What would be comparable to that engine with 500 some horsepower? What is comparable to that? And the Giulia trim that's comparable to that is expensive as doo-doo. That one is the and I'm probably going to say the Quadrifoglio, okay? That one right there has the 505 horsepower twin turbo V6 engine. That's equivalent to like a BMW, the 4 Series, right there, the M4. That is equivalent when you're looking at the inline 6, right? But again, that is selling for $80-some thousand. You see that big hike in price? There's no way that Dodge can put that engine in there and think that they're going to recruit, make sales, and then try to focus on the V8. To me, in my opinion, that would be a horrible move, because again, nobody's going to want to buy that expensive car when you can go to a Altima, way cheaper, trusted, tried and true. Yeah, it got its issues, but overall, it's been reliable. And you look at the U.S. market, people are buying it. Again, 2.8% increase, right? So that is where I was looking at, okay, instead of considering a mid-size, maybe focus on a compact car again. Because like I said, Dodge has been through many, many cars over the years. But this Dodge, this attitude does not look bad. And if we take away all of the issues about the tariffs, about, we need to bring work home to, the U.S., which we do, which some stuff is starting to change. I mean, there's a lot of shit going on, but some stuff are trying to say the production lines are open. There's a lot of things that is shifting, right? If we can bring that to us and rebadge that, even though, yes, that car was a Chinese, it was rebadged for China, that's fine. But we can take that car and fix that make that here marketable. I think that really might do something for $23,000. And like I said, I don't know where I'm going to put this, insert in about the car. That's not a bad looking car. Think about it. I mean, you got kids going to college, right? You're a Mopar family, things like this would be a nice little car to have, your kiddo go to college with. $23,000 doesn't sound bad either. Versus you're looking at these mid-size cars, and the options, depending on the engine size, are going anywhere from $44,000 on up. That's a little bit ridiculous to me when we don't know the fate ultimately of what's going to happen to the full-size cars. Already they have replaced the Chargers, the V8s with this electric vehicle car, which I don't know what's going to be the fate of that. Which check out my other video on that. But let me know your thoughts. I'm curious to see what you guys think about this. Leave your comments about, do you think that Dodge would do good with a compact car, mid-size car, no cars at all? Leave a comment. Love this dialogue, and I'm curious to see your thoughts. And I will talk to you later.
It's a majestic